Good evening. I'm going to play something that I find completely shocking. So I'm going to warn people now that once I've had a couple of minutes of waffle, I'm going to play you something about Emmy Thomas. That you might find shocking and some other people might find very triggering. I've said for a long time that I believe that the BBC has people on anti-social media working for them. They are claiming to be independent, but they appear to me to be the mainstream media's arm on anti-social media. People I've talked about: Anna Breeze, Sonia Poulton, Sean Atwood, Andrew Gold. Now, Sean Atwood, the very first video that he did and put on his YouTube channel was an interview with a BBC journalist called Eddie Mayer. It was about American prisons. I personally don't believe Sean Atwood's ever been in a prison, but that's my belief. And Andrew Gold, I'm fairly sure, has explained that he wants to work in media. He wants to be in media. You can clearly see that. He's got ambitions to be in mainstream media. And I've seen a video of him, I'm sure, saying that he went to the BBC with some ideas for programming. The BBC liked his ideas, but they weren't keen on him presenting them. And so they said, we might use your ideas, but we'd like to use somebody else to do the presenting. So Andrew Gold still has ambitions to work for the BBC. And I suspect he does work for the BBC on anti-social media. Trying to get in their good books, trying to impress them. And this is Nicky Campbell, who does work for the BBC. He's interviewed this woman called M.E. Thomas. He refers to her as being a diagnosed psychopath. But I've been looking at M.E. Thomas, and she is self-diagnosed. Her story is she wondered if she was a psychopath. And there are online tools for all kinds of mental health conditions with a test that you can take. And it'll give you a result. So she took these online tools, self-assessed herself as a psychopath. She also brings in the name of a Dr. John Edens, who works in personality disorders. He's a forensic psychologist. And she says she had an interview with Dr. John Edens. She never says that Dr. John Edens gave her this diagnosis. He didn't. I'll put everything I own on that. But she's trying to get people to believe that he did. She's also advocating that self-diagnosis using internet tools is perfectly okay. I don't know a GP, a doctor, a psychologist or a psychiatrist would recommend anyone to use these online tools to self-diagnose or use psychology books to self-diagnose, they wouldn't recommend it at all. It's incredibly damaging. Psychologically damaging. So Emmy Thomas wondered if she was a psychopath. She took self-assessment tools, which is not how psychopaths are diagnosed. They're diagnosed by a competent, qualified professional over a period of time. And then she wrote a book, My Diary, The Diary of a Sociopath. She's been on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil didn't believe her at all. Nicky Campbell, on the other hand, has promoted her as being a diagnosed psychopath. This interview was done on the 9th of May 2023, so about 18 months ago. This is Emmy Thomas being interviewed by Andrew Gold 3 years ago. That could almost mean 3.5 years or something like that, 4 years. And what I'm about to play you, I find incredibly shocking. Andrew Gold, who wants to work for the BBC. Emmy Thomas, who is not a diagnosed psychopath, or is a self-diagnosed psychopath. It's very shocking indeed. You might get triggered, you might get angry. So if you think that might have that effect on you, please don't watch. But they are advocating for paedophiles. Here we go then.
Narcissist?
Pedophiles, perhaps.
You think they're going to murder you? I mean, pedophiles. I think that what society has done to pedophiles is probably, I don't know. You know, I hesitate to kind of like say something off the cuff, but I think, you know, I knew someone, you know, from my law experience, from like, you know, very high powered, whatever, like legal experience, very, very good family or whatever, ended up going to prison for child pornography on his computer. And the way that people reacted to him, I thought, this is inhuman, the way that they are treating him.
I did an interview with a pedophile. We pronounce it differently to Americans, pedophile. One of my episodes, he's an 18-year-old, head boy of his, or the class president of his school in Germany. And he was very, you know, he came across quite well. And a lot of people have listened to that episode, and, you know, people have such disparate views. Some people are like, I can't even listen to that. And, you know, I respect that as well. And then other people are like, you know what, I get it. He's not harming anyone. But the person you mentioned was watching child pornography, which is, I suppose, contributing to more children being abused and videoed for, you know, and contributing to that child in each porn film that they've seen, contributing to their trauma.
Maybe. I don't, the latter thing that you said, that each child film that they watch contributes more to their trauma, I don't know that has been established at all. I would suggest that it's kind of an outlet for their self-expression, their identity expression, whatever. In the same way that somebody who is transgender, you know, even just switching their hormones is a little bit more of an outlet. It kind of takes the edge off in terms of they have this internal kind of rub versus like who they naturally kind of want to express themselves as versus what society will tolerate. Right.
But maybe this is where the victim thing comes in, because you're the empathy point. I mean, because the child.
Oh, absolutely.
They are victims, and I suppose it's not natural for you to. You're thinking more about the person who was doing the crime.
Well, I'm really familiar with the literature on this, the legal literature and the empirical literature on this, which is, hey, we can do CGI child pornography now and have no victims.
Well, that's different. That's very different, and that's another discussion. And
Well, who's the victim there, Andrew?
it's a complicated one, and I'm reading this book by Jenny Kleeman.
It's not that complicated because I think a lot of people would still be very squeamish about it, even if you show, hey, this is actually making them less dangerous, but we're still going to have this CGI thing. And I think this is just, this is just an accident of our tribalism, our kind of whatever, that we have this squeamishness about this. And normal people can't get over their squeamishness and see that there is another victim, which is the pedophile himself. Whereas the sociopath would say, hey, look, this coin has two sides.
I do get what you're saying, and I try to think.
Yeah, well, I am a diagnosed psychopath, and I would not say that at all. M.E. Thomas. I spent 7 months outside the BBC protesting about child abuse in all of its forms. I did 2 years at Her Majesty's Prison Grendon. Everybody in Her Majesty's Prison Grendon, some of the staff included, have antisocial personality disorder, and they're on a spectrum for psychopathy. The links between abuse in childhood and antisocial personality disorder are well known. It's also well known that at Her Majesty's Prison Grendon, it takes all prisoners, it does not segregate. And so you have pedophiles, rapists, murderers, armed robbers, burglars, people with a liking for extreme violence, all on the same wing, doing therapy together. Sorry, I'm gobsmacked. Portraying pedophiles as some sort of victim. And see what and pornography. Pornography. Pornography is adult entertainment between consenting adults. If one of the adults in that pornography, that adult entertainment, is not consenting, it's a film of a sexual crime or photographs of a sexual crime. Children don't consent. Children cannot consent. It's child abuse, not child pornography. These two people here are advocating for pedophiles. So I'll shut up, I'll play some more.
Along those lines as well, the whole point of this podcast is to be able to see different points of view, including ones we might be revulsed by or that might make us squeamish. I think that's brilliant. And I know what you're saying. I'm reading this book by someone who's coming on the show in a few weeks, Jenny Kleeman. She was on Joe Rogan as well, and she's like quite a big journalist in the UK. And she's writing about, not necessarily about child porn, but she's talking about sex robots. And she's very against them because she believes that it teaches men who are lonely or whatever it might be, that it's okay to abuse and kick around and do whatever you want with a thing that looks like a woman, and it will teach them to do that. So she suggests as well with the child's version, CGI or whatever, that it would teach them to be more familiar with doing it, and it might lead to them actually attacking more children or I don't know what the right answer to that is.
Well, I don't know either, but I know that we have science, and I know that we have researchers, and I know that we could fund this if we had any political desire to fund this and kind of look into this. But I don't think we really do, because for whatever reason, we don't want to see certain classes of people as victims, as suffering. We just want to kind of say, hey, I have this emotional reaction, this revulsion to a physical reaction, and I'm not going to take it any further than that. I'm not going to
Who is the we? We have researchers, we have funding. Who is the we? It's fairly well established that people with unhealthy interests who start delving into that material and looking at that material, fantasizing, at some point the fantasy isn't enough. And so they want to go and live out their fantasies. That's a well-established fact. So Emmy Thomas is advocating for CGI-generated child abuse imagery for the poor suffering paedophiles, so they can feed their unhealthy fantasies.
Self-reflect on that, and that's just my position. And totally fine for those people to have that position, but then I'm not surprised when people say bum things about me on the internet, because they say bum things about people that don't deserve it. I see them say idiot things about everybody, so I'm like, okay, I don't give it any credit.
I get it. I get a few people saying things, bum things about me.
Yeah, well, I just said a few bum things about you, both of you. Give me a gun and I'll bum the two of you. People should be aware about Andrew Gold, wherever he is in the UK, that he's a paedophile advocate. He's agreeing with all of this. And this was done 3 or 4 years ago. And Nicky Campbell has had this woman, promoting this woman, this fake psychopath, on the BBC. Andrew Gold would love to work for the BBC, and so would his mate Sean Atwood. I'll leave it there. They don't talk any more about it. They start waffling about other stuff. Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for your support.